Before I begin this review, I need to make something clear. During production of the movie I'm going to be talking about today, a terrible person set fire to Kyoto Animation Studio, and this resulted in 36 of the studio's workers losing their lives. The reason I'm bringing this up is because while I may not like this movie, I have nothing but respect for those who worked on this project, especially after what they went through. While I will still criticize the elements of the film since it is a piece of media, I want to make clear that I'm only attacking the art and not the artists. Artists already go through enough shit. The last thing they need is some nobody trashing on them as people. Alright, let's begin.
So, Violet Evergarden, the story of a war veteran finding purpose in life after the death of her major officer, and it's a really damn compelling one, with great characters, great stories in each episode, and an overall great character arc for Violet that transforms her from a soldier who obeyed to a person who decided for herself. This anime is easily one of Kyoto Animation's best adaptations of the source material, at least to me, and it was received so well by the general public that a follow-up was put into production titled Violet Evergarden the Movie. So as a fan of the original anime, I gave this one a shot, and similar to getting a needle, it stung like hell. But unlike the needle filling my body with helpful antibiotics, this movie filled me with anger and disappointment. But before I get into why, let's talk about what the story is about first. So the movie is centered around the titular Violet Evergarden taking on a request for a terminally ill boy, but as the film goes on, it turns out that her superior officer/love interest might have actually survived the war all along, and the film then spirals into a dramatic whirlwind of will they or won't they get together while the child's still fucking dying. Smooth.
League of Legends.
What the fuck? Gee, I wonder which story I gave a crap about more. The one with the child writing letters to their family before he passes, or Violet's old flame somehow surviving a bomb blast that was strong enough to take away Violet's fucking arms. Yeah, on its own, the story is fine enough until the reveal of the Major/Gilbert surviving is brought up. After that is when I feel the story goes the fuck off the rails.
That letter is for you. Read it.
The Major dying was one of the core events in Violet's life that ultimately began her character arc in the anime, since she started as a broken soldier finding purpose in a world no longer at war with each other, but eventually gained a purpose as the series went on, with her writing letters and finding compassion and emotion through her clients' stories, resulting in her finding her own happiness after starting the series with such a big loss in her life. So to see all that in the anime, and then to have this movie come along and reveal, the Major was alive all along, but he hid himself away from Violet out of guilt for making her suffer due to his near-death experience, yeah, it was such a letdown for me. Like, really? This is what you went with? Decision that feels like something I would see in a show that's running on fucking fumes in an attempt to regain its audience. Needless to say, I was not a fan of them bringing back this character, and the most they do with him is basically the old and tired, I don't want her to see me again, well she also anyway, shtick that's common in romance stories and not really done all that differently with this film's attempt. Like, if you're gonna use a cliched idea, would it at least kill you to put a spin on it, for fuck's sake? But alright. Cliches become cliches for a reason, so even if I ignore the other uses of this in media, does this movie do this concept well? No. No, it does not. This shit goes on for far too long in terms of pacing. It's repetitive with him constantly trying to get Gilbert to talk social reunite with Violet to the point of me rolling my eyes when it kept happening. And the end result, with Gilbert realizing that he loves Violet and confesses to her as she's leaving the island, didn't feel satisfying to me because they finally got together after all they suffered through. Rather, it was only satisfying to me because it meant this film could finally end. Basically, I was satisfied that it was over with, and not because it was a genuinely heartwarming scene to see. Which is so disappointing, because I know this series can do a good job tugging at my heartstrings. It did that numerous times before, such as episode 7, when we find out the client wrote the play as a means to cope with his daughter's death. Or episode 10, when we see a child receive a letter every year for the next 50 years thanks to her dying mother requesting Violet to do so before she passed, so that, in a sense, she could be there to support her daughter even in death. I'll admit, the series did a great job in making me tear up at points, and I'll admit, when I first saw this movie resort to such tiresome cliches that aren't even used well in said movie, I got annoyed. I got very much annoyed. But then, as time went on, I looked back on this decision and just felt more disappointment than annoyance or anger, because, frankly, there's more important things to get angry at than a piece of consumable media, frankly. It does make for good bits for the video, but, outside of that, there's more important things to get angry at. But I think you get the idea by now that I didn't like the idea to bring back Gilbert, and that the decision to focus a good chunk of the movie on him and Violet was not a decision I liked. So how about I move on to something else to talk about? The animation is not as great as the series, and that is so disappointing. The backgrounds are dry and unappealing to the eye, the lighting isn't that great at numerous points. Put simply, this feels like such a downgrade in comparison to the show, and that fucking hurts to see. Because I know this studio could make some really good animation and art that show not only their prior works, but the fucking anime itself. And I think that's probably the best way I can describe this movie. It's not a bad movie, but it is a big disappointment in comparison to the anime. The story's a lot weaker, the cast is a lot weaker, the animation's a lot weaker, and even the audio is a lot weaker this time around. However, this is important, I do recommend this movie for fans of the anime.
What? What?
Listen, there's this idea out there that you could just skip the movie and focus on the anime's ending if you weren't happy with the movie's ending since Violet moves on from Gilbert and that, and I'm sorry, but that's horseshit. While Violet does move on in the anime, she still believes Gilbert is alive. So the anime doesn't even give a definitive ending like so many believe it does. Like it or not, the movie is one of the endings of the original story, and as such, I recommend it solely for getting a proper conclusion to the show. Well, I guess you could also just read the light novel, but considering that ending also brings back Gilbert, your mileage may vary on that option being the better choice. But that's just me. I know and understand that people do like this movie, and frankly, more power to them. They found something that I clearly missed on my watch of this film and were able to enjoy, which is great. Just because I didn't enjoy something doesn't mean you have to share in my misery/disappointment. Enjoy what you enjoy, basically. But that's all I got for this one. So until we meet again, I'm David Graham, and thank you for watching.